All right, while the jury walks into that courtroom, let's talk about this ruling from Judge Cannoni with criminal defense attorney Jeffrey Wolf. Jeffrey, thanks so much for being on with us from Denver, Colorado. Let's talk about these slides. So the slides are out, and just to tell our viewers, if they've been watching the arguments, Dr. Rentschler is expected to testify, or the defense wanted him to testify, that the abrasions on John O'Keefe's arm matched up with the different holes in his sweatshirt. And he has slides to this effect with text on it. Hank Brennan said he's not a fabrics expert. He shouldn't be able to get into that. Your thoughts on whether we have to have that kind of expertise on every level when he is generally a biomechanic and accident reconstructionist?
Well, when you're an accident reconstructionist, you have the ability to see what happens in an accident and observe it. And so that means he's seen people with all kinds of injuries and he's seen what happens to their clothing. So no, he doesn't need to be an expert in fabrics to know whether a tear on somebody's clothing matches up with the injuries he sees underneath. That is, quite frankly, proper lay opinion to know whether a tear matches up with a cut underneath it and whether that can be seen with the naked eye. And so I think that what we're seeing here is more of what we've seen throughout this trial, which is an exercise in how much can we keep away from this jury and how much can we obscure from their ears and their eyes. That is what the prosecution has been doing throughout this trial and what the judge has helped them do. And so it's crazy, quite frankly, to watch it continue to happen and to say that experts don't regularly use PowerPoints to illustrate their points and put things up in text form while they're talking. It's regularly used in trials. It's 2025. PowerPoints are commonplace for experts and lawyers all the time. It's just insane what we're watching happen in this courtroom.
Yeah, Jeffrey, I really wonder if the jurors feel uncomfortable about what they may not be seeing, because there are times like today when the forensic pathologist wanted to talk about dog bites and there was a sidebar. So I think sometimes jurors' ears perk up more when there's an objection where they can't hear what the subject matter is. Stand by, Jeffrey. We know that the jury has returned from their lunch break, so let's go back in for more of the cross-examination of that pathologist, Dr. Elizabeth La Posada.
Brennan, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Dr. La Posada.
Good afternoon.
Are you on point now?
You are.
You were asked on direct examination about your qualifications. You were a medical examiner for the state of Rhode Island. Is that fair to say?
Yes, I was the chief medical examiner.
For 20 years?
12 years.
I'm sorry, 12 years. When's the last time you worked as a medical examiner?
In 2005.
When's the last time that you conducted an autopsy?
I've done probably a handful of autopsies, private autopsies in my consulting practice.
Since 2005?
Correct.
When do you think the last time you did one is?
Maybe 4 years ago, four or 5 years ago.
4 or 5 years ago?
Yes.
Okay. Since you left the medical examiner's office, have you had any specialized training in brain injuries?
It's all part of keeping up with the medical literature and knowing the forensic pathology literature, reading medical literature. So it's a continuing endeavor to keep yourself educated with medical updates.
Since you left the medical examiner's office, have you had any specialized training in brain injuries?
I've not gone to a course on brain injuries.
Since you left the medical examiner's office, have you taught any students on brain injuries?
Yes.
Have you given any classes or seminars on brain injuries?
Yes, I have.
In coup counter coup, how many times have you experienced that as a medical examiner, that condition?
Well, I myself haven't experienced it, which was good, but in cases, hundreds of cases, it's a common injury.
You said you did differential diagnosis. That is to exhaust any potential bias you have, correct?
Well, a differential diagnosis is to think, how many ways can you get this finding? And it does help prevent bias.
Did you say on direct examination part of the benefit of differential diagnosis is to make sure that you don't have a bias?
Yes, yes.
In order to eliminate bias, you're supposed to look at all reasonable alternatives, correct?
Yes, that's part of it, making a differential diagnosis.
So you don't just look at a person's body, come to a conclusion, and ignore other evidence. That would kind of defeat the purpose of differential diagnosis, wouldn't it?
Well, you always have to look at all the evidence.
And so if you didn't look at all the evidence and you disregarded some of the evidence because you had already made up your mind, that really wouldn't be the proper study of differential diagnosis, would it?
Right, I don't do that.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
I don't do that. I always look at all the evidence.
And would you look at all the evidence even if it was contrary to whatever opinion you want to give in court?
Well, the evidence allows me to come to an opinion. So it's not like I decide on some opinion I want to give and then look for the evidence. The evidence is going to tell me what happened to the body.
So you would never say, like...
Hitting the pause button on this testimony so we can slip in a break. Remember, Hank Brennan has in his arsenal, because the judge ruled in his favor, that he can bring up a devastating nightclub fire that this witness would have been the medical examiner for. And he says she was entirely too long in arriving to the scene. That's next. Welcome back to Court TV Live. We continue to follow the case against Karen Reed happening in Dedham, Massachusetts. It's day 30 for this trial. It's the defense case. She's pleaded not guilty to second-degree murder in connection to the death of her Boston police officer boyfriend, John O'Keefe, where prosecutors say that she slammed into him with her SUV during a snowstorm. Her first trial ended with a hung jury after her defense argued that this was a cover-up, that there's something nefarious going on with the police department. Right now, we're listening to cross-examination from a pathologist, Dr. Elizabeth La Posada. She, of course, was retained by the defense and has already done her direct examination, and now Special Prosecutor Hank Brennan is crossing her. Let's go back right where we left off.
So you would never say, like, I don't need to look at that evidence. If it's presented to you, you would look at it and study it and consider it in differential diagnosis?
Sure, it may or may not apply, but I'd look at it.
Because if you did that and said, well, I don't need to look at this, and it was relevant evidence, that would defeat the whole idea of differential diagnosis, correct?
Well, you always want to look at all the evidence that's going to help you decide what happened to the body.
If you were to ignore relevant evidence because you already made your mind up, that could create some type of bias, even if you're not recognizing it, correct?
Well, I don't make my mind up. I make it up on all the evidence I have. Then if something else other evidence comes up later, I have to reevaluate everything and consider that new evidence.
When you were talking about car collisions, I don't want to belabor the point, but you didn't major in physics, did you?
In what?
You didn't major in physics, did you?
No, I took physics, but no, didn't major in it.
Okay. And the last time you took physics was probably, what, undergrad?
Correct. Thank goodness.
You have no study in biomechanical engineering?
No, I'm not a biomechanical engineer.
Understood. You never taught courses in accident reconstruction, have you?
Only in terms of looking at the injuries on the body and showing how that they could or could not have occurred from impact with a motor vehicle.
Have you taught classes in accident reconstruction?
Only as far as it would affect the findings on the body.
Do you know what I mean by when I say accident reconstruction?
Well, accident reconstruction meaning, and I'm telling you that my expertise in accident reconstruction is restricted to looking at the body and then understanding how impacts may or may not have occurred to the body. I don't take a car and look at mileage and such like that.
You don't do any studies of the actual vehicles, you're focused on the body?
I'm focused on the body, but I also look at the vehicles to look at the points of impact that might be possible.
You do not have any advanced study in biomechanics, do you?
No.
Okay. Now, you had mentioned that when you were in the medical examiner's office, you had a number of higher profile cases?
Well, every case is important because somebody's dead.
You pointed out some pretty specific ones on direct examination. Were those more important, the ones that were highlighted, or is that the same as every other case?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, you had mentioned the Egypt airline crash, station nightclub fire. Those were highlighted or pronounced on direct examination. Are they equally important as every other case?
Oh, absolutely. Every person is my patient.
You talked about some of your commendations. The station nightclub fire, you received quite a bit of criticism on that, didn't you?
Well, there was a flurry of negative press without any basis.
You had mentioned that a doctor, a medical examiner, should have gone out to the scene to look at the area where John O'Keefe was found to make observations. Did you suggest that in any way on direct examination?
You have to know what the scene looks like, and usually that is documented in police reports and in police photographs who document the scene.
The station nightclub fire, that had numerous victims, didn't it?
Yes, 100.
And you received criticism because you were repeatedly requested by emergency responders and police officials to come to the scene, and you refused?
That's incorrect. First of all, nobody called me to come to the scene, and medical examiners are not first responders. As soon as I got a call that there was that fire in the nightclub, my investigator went right to the scene, and I was in constant communication with him throughout the early morning hours of that horrible accident. And I went into the medical examiner's office because I had to start getting ready to run our office 24 hours a day to not only take care of the poor individuals who expired in the nightclub fire, but also the regular work of the medical examiners. So there was no need for me to go to the scene because I had my investigator there, and my job would be at the office to get things all set up to handle the influx of deceased.
Did you receive criticism that over 17 hours there was an effort to have you come to the scene, but you refused?
I'm going to allow it in a different form.
Yeah, that's incorrect.
Hold on, Dr.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I didn't mean to scare you. Just
Okay.
hold on for a second.
Okay.
Asking differently, Mr. Brennan, please.
Did you receive criticism that officials...
I'm going to allow it based on the ending, pursuant to the ending. Let's hear it.
Did you receive criticism that for over 17 hours officials were asking you to come to the scene and you refused?
It was untrue. It was printed in the newspaper. We looked up all the phone records and provided it to the newspapers and showed that nobody called me to go. I would have gone if I needed to. I had my investigator there. It was just bullshit. No, it was erroneous stuff.
Was there other criticisms in 2005 before you left the office?
No, there was a flurry of stuff in the papers. There were union issues, new director of health, new governor. So yeah, there was a little flurry of stuff, which was not substantive.
Dr. LaPosada responding and dropping a bit of an expletive there on the stand. We usually have to drop those words that we can't say on TV. So she said it was bull, and then you can fill in the rest in terms of the criticism her office received after that devastating nightclub fire that took the life of 100 people in Rhode Island, people who were watching the Great White Rock Band when they were there. So one of those stories back in 2003 that just grabbed so many headlines, she was the medical examiner, and that criticism alleged that she waited too long to get to the scene and that their response was problematic. Let's get to a break. We'll hear how she continues to stand up under this criticism from the prosecution, and we know the defense is going to rehabilitate her when they get that chance to redirect. Stay with us. Lori Daybell, doomsday cult mom, convicted killer,
and now defendant in yet another high-profile trial.
Will this be the final chapter in the saga
of the doomsday cult mom?
The Lori Daybell conspiracy trial, today on Court TV.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, Karen Reed in the fight of her life. Our experts break down the day's biggest moments and what to expect next in this high-stakes trial.
Closing Arguments with Vinnie Politan, tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. We will head back to Dedham, Massachusetts for the Karen Reed murder retrial in just a minute, but let's quickly get an update in the sex trafficking and racketeering trial for Sean Diddy Combs happening in New York. Combs' ex-girlfriend, who's been testifying under the pseudonym Jane, was back on the stand today, testifying now under cross-examination. Jane, a single mother and content creator who dated the music mogul from 2021 to 2024, accused Combs of pressuring her into these sex performances with other men through what she says were false promises of a real relationship. And before the jury went to lunch, Jane told the jury that she resented Combs for leading her to that lifestyle that he led her to, adding that her choices were made under a lot of emotional pressure. She said that despite her resentment, she still loves Combs, and the defense, of course, highlighting these choices, and that her terminology for that was that she had a choice. Now, yesterday, the jury listened to audio recordings of voice notes that Combs sent to Jane via text between November 2021 and August of 2023. Let's listen to one of those memos left in August of 2023.
Where my life is at right now, I don't have no time for no games, baby girl. Me and you can be mad, I can have a spat, we can have whatever. Then after that, you better get on your job. That's really, that's all it is. Cause you got me on my job. Nah, it ain't never gonna work like that over here. You know what I'm saying? I was trying not to leave this message, but you have left me no choice.
We'll continue to monitor Jane's testimony and the Combs trial as the defense team continues their questions, and we'll bring you those hourly updates. Now let's get back into the courtroom in Dedham, where we are in week 8 of this Massachusetts trial, day 30, the murder retrial for Karen Reed, and cross-examination is happening of the forensic pathologist for the defense, Dr. Elizabeth La Posada.
Inevitably did resign in 2005.
Yes, because my budget was going to be cut, and I knew that if I had to get rid of a medical examiner, we couldn't do a good job for the state, and I'd done it. I'd been chief for 12 years. I'd been on call 24 hours a day for 12 years, which was an honor, really. But then if I couldn't do a good job, if we cut the budget, I had to get rid of a medical examiner. I couldn't serve the people of Rhode Island well, so I resigned.
Did you resign shortly after the audits and criticism?
No.
Same year?
Oh, I don't even remember.
Okay. After you resigned, you opened your own company?
Yes, I started an independent consulting practice.
How much of your business is consulting?
It's a consulting practice.
Yep. How much of your business, how much of your income is consulting?
100%. It's consulting.
Do you consult in both criminal and civil cases?
Yes, I do.
What percentage of cases are criminal cases?
It's maybe half and half.
Half criminal, half civil?
I don't keep track of it in that way, but that would be a guess.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I don't keep track of numbers of civil or criminal cases that I'm consulted in. If I had to give an estimate, it would be half and half. I've worked on over 1,000 cases in my private company.
And fair to say you get compensated for your time?
Yes, I get paid for my time.
Dr. La Posada, you had mentioned that there were some scratches that you had taken a look at on Mr. O'Keefe's body. If we could have Exhibit 165, please. Now, would it be fair to say, Dr. La Posada, you do not know the genesis of that cut on Mr. O'Keefe's right eye?
I do not know what caused it. I can tell you what didn't cause it, but I don't know what did cause it.
You said that was from blunt force?
It's from application of blunt force to that little area that broke the skin.
When you were asked a question about whether that was consistent with a punch, you opined that it was consistent with a punch, yes?
It could be consistent with a punch.
You weren't saying it was consistent with a punch to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, were you?
That would be within my differential diagnosis.
Okay. It could be consistent with all other types of blunt impact, or many other types of blunt impact, couldn't it?
That's correct.
Ground, perhaps?
No.
No, an object?
If it was an object that could get into that area under the eyebrow, yes.
You mentioned the spoiler on the back of Miss Reed's Lexus. Do you remember that?
I remember that.
Do you know how tall John O'Keefe was?
He's around 7 foot, 5'11", I think, 7'2", something around in there.
No, he's more closer to 6'1". Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay. And that spoiler on the Lexus, do you know how high off the ground that is?
No.
Did you ever try to measure it or ask for photos or any information about that?
No, I looked at the photos.
Did you ever ask for any measurements or try to take any measurements?
No.
Could I have Exhibit 166, please? Did you see this cut on Mr. O'Keefe's nose?
That's a scratch. It's not made by a sharp instrument. It's not a cut. It's a scratch.
Is there any scratches on the left side? Do we have a photo of the left side? Please. And that you say that's a scratch, not a cut?
Correct, because a cut means it's made by a sharp thing, like a knife. And a scratch is made by something that's kind of rounded, that has a little point on it, but it's not sharp.
Do you have any information or basis to say where that scratch came from?
No.
Did you do any differential diagnosis on that scratch?
I don't know what caused that. There could be a number of things that caused it.
Okay. There was.
Let's hit the pause button on her testimony so we can talk to criminal defense attorney Jeffrey Wolf, who's watching along with us. She says it's a scratch, not a cut. Jeffrey, is that terminology important?
It is important because when you're talking about a scratch, not a cut, you're talking about something that's more superficial. And I think that when she defines it as a scratch, not a cut, she's not talking necessarily towards the prosecution's theory of a car, which is going to cut through the body. But what she's also doing is she's speaking in terms of maybe this, maybe that, whereas the prosecution thinks what they're doing is they're getting away from the defense theory of the case, where she was saying it's what the defense wants her to say it is. But what she's now doing is a good expert, quite frankly, for the defense, is she's saying it could basically be anything. And if it could be anything, well, that's reasonable doubt. Because if it's not necessarily for sure a car that caused these injuries, well, it could be anything. And if it could be anything, that's reasonable doubt.
Yeah, I think something that she said earlier goes to your point, where she said, I don't know what caused it, but I know what didn't cause it. And that could be the banner of this defense case, because this time around especially, they're not telling this jury anything about exactly what happened, which they don't have to prove it legally, but they are saying it absolutely didn't happen this way. Is that effective in front of a jury? Do they need that question answered by the defense?
Well, I think what the defense has learned about the prosecution from the first trial is that the prosecution doesn't have all the answers. And when the prosecution doesn't have all of the answers, sometimes what you need to show to the jury is that the absence of proof is reasonable doubt. And I think that's the strategy that we're seeing this second time around from the defense here, is they are pointing out the holes in the prosecution's case rather than trying to answer all the questions and fill out that grand conspiracy that they tried to do in the first case. And I think it's a good strategy, and I think it's a better strategy, quite frankly, than they did the first time.
We'll see what the outcome is. We are getting so close to this case being passed to the jury. We're getting to the end of the defense case, and then we expect there to be a rebuttal by the state, and then closing arguments. It's coming soon, Jeffrey. Thank you for your analysis this hour. Coming up, we have more testimony in the murder retrial for Karen Reed. We have more of La Posada on the stand, and we're getting closer to hearing from the second ARCA witness, the accident reconstructionist, Dr. Andrew Rentschler. Thank you for being with us. We'll be right back.